He's going to send it to you.
No.
Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for April 14th, 2025. We'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
United States of America.
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. No, I think it was this.
It's just picking some list watching a Japanese horror movie. The lips are moving, nothing's coming out.
Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Ball.
Here.
David Colorado.
Here.
Steve Baldwin.
Present.
Ben Dollinger. Tim Garneau. Jim Grimes.
Yes.
Celia Josephson.
Present via Zoom.
Thank you, Celia.
Oh.
And
Celia.
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to address the board? You don't have to.
Do you want to come and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kim.
No, please come up to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Kim Cordy, and I am the new Executive Director for the Friends of Georgia Pond. So I'm happy to be working with you, and I just wanted to come introduce myself and, learn a little bit about how you run your meetings and, just make that contact if there's anything that we can collaborate on. And I mean, I'm sure we are, so I'd like to continue that partnership. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, welcome.
Nice meeting you. Thanks a lot.
Matt, do we have anybody on the phone lines?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to new business. New York State DEC launched an online platform for public to report suspected cases of highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreaks in birds. I don't know who brought this to us.
So I was at a meeting of the Sportsmen's Alliance, and they had 2 DEC officers who are field officers. And I asked them about this, and they said, because people have asked me on the beach, what do I do with this dead bird? And they said they don't want the dead birds. They want you to go on this link and report what you saw, what you found, the type of bird. And if they need to, they will collect it, but people don't need to worry about that. And they are very interested in this because it's a vector that is possible where it would show up now. So, just for your information, this is the URL. And I went through it. It's very easy to fill out. Put in your name, your location, pulls up the GPS coordinates of where you are. And pretty simple. So.
Yeah, they said they don't need any more bodies or anything, but it could be contagious, so they like people to stay away from it.
Yes, you can go on their website and to this link, and they remark about that. Stay away from it, don't touch it, don't let your dogs near it.
So is this for all dead birds that you come
Find a
across?
dead
or
bird on
is
the
it-
beach.
Yeah, anything that you see that it's dead and it's on the beach.
Okay.
I've seen avian flu has gotten around.
That I've ever seen in 30 years on the beach.
Yeah, I'm also seeing birds that I don't normally see in areas that are dead.
Really?
Like there's a house I take care
No,
of on Ocean. Ocean
The bird flu,
Avenue. Ocean Avenue.
the bird
And there
flu
was
has
a dead
gotten into
goose
the
in the front
wild.
yard. There's never geese there.
Yeah.
Never. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, there were like 3 dead seagulls on the beach, and it was a windy night the night before, and somebody wanted to collect them, and I didn't think it was necessary. So I was happy to see this is something that they can do.
Yeah, thank you.
Should we put that notice on our website?
We should put this on our website. That's why
Do you want to read the URL? Or is it too long?
it's a long string.
Okay,
It's,
No, we post it on the website. I think it's a good idea.
Sure.
yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Allison.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh,
Oh, there it is. So it's this document that you have, and that's the URL and the hyperlink. And I suggest you click on it and just see how straightforward it is. I wish they had an app for it. It's not an app. Yeah, it's a URL, but that's what they have.
Is it going to come up? No. It's not over here.
Yeah, we see. Yeah, we see it.
No, she hit the hyperlink. Yeah, didn't change.
Okay, well, listen, you made your best effort. We can move on.
No, but it's, all right. Suffolk County Working Waterfront Survey. You want to talk about it, or do you want me to? Okay. Okay, so Suffolk County has put out a survey on waterfront businesses, including fisheries, I believe restaurants, marinas, and such. And they're concerned about these properties being sold and becoming luxury condos or, you know, of such. They're afraid of losing the waterfront working areas. And so they've put out a survey to people who are involved in the waterfront as their industries, and they're looking for response to these surveys. I guess there's people are a little slow getting them back. They've extended the deadline on those to Friday. So if anybody knows of anyone who may have received these and have not turned them in, please remind them that they have to get in. All right. Old business, CCE Spring Trawl Survey. John?
So this is Cornell Cooperative Extension's quarterly trawl survey to determine in the 5-year program to determine any impacts that the EMFs emanating from the transmission cable from South Fork wind coming into land and across the beach may have on the fisheries offshore of our South Shore. The survey is going to take place. You could put that map up there, Allison. Between April 12th and 18th, that's basically this week. There's a notice on this notice is on our website, so if any, just bring it up to the map part.
It's not really going. There you go. There you go. Austin. That's good.
So that's the extent of the survey from basically Moriches Inlet to Montauk Point. The red crossed hatched area is the experimental area where there may be an impact. The green is sort of a control area where wouldn't be expected to be any impact because the cable isn't close enough to impact anything in that area. So this is, they'll be randomly doing 20-minute, a dragger from Shinnecock will be randomly doing 20-minute tows in this area, these areas. Information's on our website, as I said. for any marine interests, fisheries interests in the ocean, interested to know where the dragger is going to be doing its work, so it doesn't conflict with their activities, or if they have fixed gear in the area. The stations are all the trawling stations, the spot where the trawler will be doing its 20-minute tows is also listed by latitude, longitude. So fishermen can check those spots to see if they have gear in that area and contact the Cornell or captain of the boat.
The boat's available on channel 13 and 16.
Right.
Bulldog.
And I also got some information from Cornell about where we are in this survey. So this is year 5 of the survey. Started in the summer of 2021. 2021, 2022 were pre-construction samples. 2023 was sampling during the year of construction or the installation of the cable. And 24 and 25 would be sampling post-construction when the cable's been installed and activated. Some good news here, since they say since we didn't get everything squared away until mid-2021, we're going to do 2 more surveys, winter and spring of 2026, since we have the funds. Forsted's on board, and they're currently looking into the paperwork that will be needed. So that's a bit of good news.
All right.
Was the line active in 23? Was the construction phase?
I think it was activated in 24.
Yeah, March of 24.
So we have 3 years data. Active.
Post-construction, yeah.
Yeah,
2 years. And we will have part of the 3rd year.
right.
All right. Great. 2024 Water Quality Report by Dr. Gobler was presented last week. He did send us some updated data from that report. I believe it's been posted on our website. Is that,
Yeah, I got the email.
that's true? Okay.
I don't know if it's posted on the website.
Has not been posted yet?
The regular report was, the updated data has not been.
Okay. All right.
I can sort of summarize it. Maybe you can put that up, Allison, the graphs.
Do we have the document up, right? Full document?
None of this is up on the website yet.
Not the full
The
document?
presentation is up.
Oh, okay.
The full
His report.
report is up
Right.
without the addition, these new additions.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe this could be somehow embedded in the other document?
Well, I think it'd just have to be posted as sort of an addendum. It's kind of how he presented it, as an addendum. It's not in the report because the report basically, well, the report was looking at the sampling stations that we have in place for that year. This is an 11-year trend analysis. We took the stations that have been done every year for the last 10 years. So to see if, what the trends are, by taking away the stations that have been added over time, which would just make the whole data meaningless, basically. So basically, surface and bottom temperatures were the only metric that didn't significantly change over the last 10 years. What is that? That is that's not it. So this first one is Alexandrium. That's basically the organism that causes red tide. That's the trend over time. that did show an increase over time. The next graph is gynophysis over the 10 years. That also increased. The trend increased. The third graph is Cochleodinium, which has a new name now, which I can't pronounce, but we'll keep calling it Cochleodinium because we just learned how to pronounce that. And that's been present. I think that one really hasn't increased. Looks like it hasn't. Well, let me correct the Alexandrium. Across all East Hampton water bodies, there's been no significant trend in Alexandrium or Cochleodinium blooms. But there have been several peaks over the time period. Okay, so let's go to chlorophyll A. These are some of the basic parameters. So chlorophyll A basically looks at gross quantity of algae in the water. That's increased over time, pretty steeply it seems. And then the next graph is surface and bottom water temperatures, which basically didn't significantly change. And then the next graph is surface and bottom salinity, which trended down. Both surface and bottom salinities trended down over the period. None of this was sort of analyzed for why. Could be increased rainfall, could be other factors, could be more
Ice sheets are diluting the water.
Could be more development, putting more water and fresh water into the systems. And finally is dissolved oxygen, which has trended up, both surface and bottom readings. So that's the 10-year trends. Sorry, I don't speak about it as eloquently as Chris Goldwood does, but maybe he can summarize it for us next time he's here.
Have we gotten a proposal for 2025 from him?
No, we've kind of got to get together with him. I think we need to talk about it ourselves first to find out what we want to head.
Yeah, if there's any way that he can compile his information and somehow get it out, let's say in the month of January, so that we have it from the previous year and we can have already had discussions, because I think we both know what's going to happen is same thing that's happened every year. It's going to be an 11th hour crisis to sign up for this year's program because he's getting ready to start, and that's kind of a lousy way for us to have to deal with.
We don't get his data till March.
No, and I don't understand why you can't do it, because they're done in what, November, October?
No, well, some is later, but yeah, they're done by the end of the year.
I do think we need sufficient time to digest where we are with this, and if there's anything we want to change. I mean, but we could be working on that, right? We have it all in-house now.
Yeah, we've had his report since, I don't know, for a while.
It's just for us to
At least a couple of weeks before his presentation. So.
And I think that almost everything that he's done so far, we would want him to continue to do. And
Yeah.
we might want to add something.
Well,
we've been, what's happened is every year we have been adding.
Mhm.
And we've been adding, and for the most part, I don't know, what have we actually, we haven't stopped anything, have we?
well, yeah, no, we have changed things. I mean, basically, he's looked at the same things, but he hasn't necessarily looked at them in the same places. 2 years ago, we focused a little more on Napeag. Last year, we focused more on Hog Creek and Northwest Creek. So for example,
Well, Little Northwest we added also, it's
Yeah.
one point, right?
yeah, we did more work there. But for the, what do you call the test for the different,
We were moving some of the DNA testing
What?
around too, right?
Yeah, but it's
That's
just,
different.
I think we've got enough data at this
The
point.
molecular stuff,
We should be targeting some of
MSG?
this testing.
To do stuff.
molecular source
And coming up
tracking.
with specific
Microbial source
products.
tracking.
We do have Napeag.
That I would like to.
This other thing, especially like now, the town's bought that property adjacent Wainscott Park.
Wainscott is doing that.
There's a real reason
Yeah.
to spearhead something there.
No, I have all the size work if you need it.
for example, this year we did the molecular source tracking work focused on Hog Creek.
Yeah.
And, in the past, there had been sort of a shotgun approach. Let's see where it is in different water bodies. But this year,
After you get a certain amount of information from a hobby, you can move on to something else. Well,
It's not that you totally give it up, but maybe it's not an every year thing.
Yeah, the only suggestion I have is that he presents us with an analysis plan before as close to the contract as possible about what he's going to do statistically, because he does these statistical analyses. And it would be nice to know what they are beforehand. So they're a priori statistical analyses. They're defined beforehand, not after the fact. And that would be helpful, because that's how it's typically done. But the one thing I'm not 100, I just have some questions about the microbial source tracking assay that he used. And I want to show him what I found about potential tests, because those are kits that you buy. They're not, you don't do it from scratch. And the one, he could not differentiate, he could not identify ruminant fecal matter in Accabonac Harbor. He did not identify it. He identified canine, dog, mammal, small mammal. And I believe there's enough deer in that harbor that you would see some of
It's
that.
intuitive. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are tests that are more able to differentiate small mammal from ruminant, and that would probably be the one to use, or don't do it at all. I mean, or because it's not that informative.
Well, it's only informative in the sense that, it's one thing to do E. coli or whatever in the water, and it's pretty broad spectrum.
Right.
That can be anything from deer to canine to people. And, I think there's some implied results that we found are untrue in some areas,
Yes.
For example, the parking area over there by Georgia Pond, everybody looked at that and said, this is human fecal coliform here, and we found that it's mostly dogs, and I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
In some of these water bodies, again, waterfowl were the bigger contributor.
Well, there are, sometimes we have seen human E. coli that come from humans, and we know there are suspicious septic systems in, specifically.
And that's what this is all about, is to
But
try
we
to
can't,
identify.
that's nothing, I mean, someone could use that for decision-making, right? Someone who has authority over that, like the county, could use that for decision-making. We
well,
can't.
what I found interesting is the largest human signals have been pretty consistently over the years around where there's boats, around marinas,
it's both.
dockages. Shouldn't be that way.
Well, it shouldn't be, but, and there's this compliance issue that, I mean, we get assured that everything's fine, but I think in practice, it's not been as, the boaters have not been as compliant. And, one of the things that's come out of with the Marine Patrol is that them working with our pump out captains to identify boats. If you've got people living on a boat or on boats every weekend, and you haven't pumped that boat out ever.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
Contrary, maybe closed when the Marine Patrol boards the boat.
In Sag Harbor, they go around and they check boats. They do random checks, and they'll find some of those bigger yachts are not,
Yeah.
So they could do that in our waters. Maybe Tim Treadwell, they can.
They've actually been actively trying to do that. It's been.
They do it. When we first started the program, they wanted to go with education and stuff first because it was a little controversial, You're always going to get some bad actors in there, but we couldn't, make people that get more answer a question about what they do with their, they log in with the pump out vessel. Because we were talking about trying to increase it a little. And you can check that the heads are all sealed when you have another reason for going on a boat. So we could push it a little, maybe even.
Well, they have.
Publicity.
They have. I think this is one of those things. We're getting better at this, but we're not.
You raise the fine? Can you raise the fine?
Well, the town board.
One thing you could do in the educational sense is take this data and put it together and target the marinas where the dockages are. I don't know how, flyers, signs,
Well,
whatever,
I'm
and
gonna
say,
tell
look,
you, I think even.
look at this data. This is where you are here. Make sure you and your neighbor are doing what
Yeah,
you're
but I
supposed to
think
be doing.
truthfully, most of these marinas, they don't want to be painted with that brush. So a quiet, casual conversation about what your findings are, I think you might find some of those guys to be your best advocates. Because, if they've got, they say to their guys, hey, you know what? We gotta do a better job of keeping track of these boats at our slips and pay attention. It's clear that there's guys doing this. And, you'll get, hey, listen, if you find yourself getting thrown out of a marina over something like that, word spreads pretty fast.
But some marinas aren't really overseen so much.
No.
Town dock is one of them, head of the harbor.
Isn't this a free service though? Why? What's the resistance?
It's not so much resistance is,
Not knowing.
why go to the bathroom when you can just piss your pants? That's really what it comes down
I don't
to.
think that's the same. They're lazy, I guess.
No, I mean, even though it's free, it's,
It's just, hey, you know what, to pump
gotta
out,
do it.
you've got to call in, you've
Yeah.
got to make
Yeah.
arrangements, and you know
tomorrow.
what, some guys just don't want to,
Yeah.
they don't want to take the time.
Okay.
It could also just be sloppy pump out,
Don't ever say that, John.
I don't think so.
Hey, John, I don't want you to ever hear say that again. in my presence. Okay, our guys do a great friggin'
I don't
job.
mean them.
They're not pumping it over the side.
The individuals themselves.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people pump out themselves at Dan Road, right?
Yeah.
And in
yeah, but
Montauk, right? Isn't there a
It's not-
pump out in Montauk?
There is, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that there's that much self pump out because that is a real pain in the ass.
Yeah. But that's my point. If there is, and it wasn't done very well, and then they come back to their slip and then they hose down their boat, maybe they're not discharging directly, but
Yeah.
it might be indirect discharge for.
Yeah, we could put, use the pump out boat, maybe republicize the stuff again.
No,
Without getting specific with Marine.
Okay, so this conversation started as, what are we doing with Goldblum's? Next year. Next year.
Yeah.
Well, basically, we need to get together with the group.
Does he just send the proposal, or do we have to ask for it?
We tell them what
meet
to
with
do.
them and then give them some direct, idea of what direction we want to head this year, and then he sends a proposal.
The other thing is he has created a database. I've never seen it, but he said he's created a database with all of our data in it. And we should be able to, use that ourselves if we wanted to go back and look at something.
I think that's all available.
well,
I think we can ask for that if we want to.
Yeah, so that's really good to have. I mean, I've never seen it, so I think we would need an orientation to it so that we could actually, cruise through it.
Yeah, if you email him, he's pretty good with getting back to you if you
Yeah.
want to see anything.
Yeah.
If we want to make that a formal request for,
6 in the morning.
provide it to the board, I think we can do it as part of our direction.
Yeah, I think,
But do you think we should do anything special about Wainscott Pond?
I think we should really start thinking about that.
I agree. Now we have public access, so.
Yeah, but I think what we really need to do with Wainscott Pond is have a sit down with representatives from the town and start to coordinate how, basic.
Well,
the
he's
basic-
been testing there all along.
Yeah. And that is the one water body that has been like the poor stepchild because there is no access. There's really nothing.
Now we have access.
Well, now there is, but there's been nothing done there. There's been talk over the years about a bunch of things, but the biggest issue has always been access. And that has been sort of a disincentive on our part to really put any effort or spend any money towards it. Now that the town owns most of the surrounding property, we own the pond, maybe this would be a great opportunity for us to work together.
Yep.
We're gonna
The
need
first
bottom.
thing we need to do with that is to, as Francis said, kind of gather what's been done already. Remember back when Sykinsilla used to come here all the time?
I have like a lot of those.
There are reports that
It's
were,
about the ton of
Yeah,
paper.
the stuff that, that was part of our testing, but they paid.
Right, so we
and
should,
stuff that they just paid for.
Yeah.
There was a whole sediment analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do another sediment analysis. I have that information someplace.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I'd be willing to bet that sediment analysis, there's been no ocean breaches
Not
over
sure.
there since that sediment analysis was done. So I'm going to guess that that's probably pretty darn close to the same of what it was.
A lot of what, the issues with Wainscott Pond is what's happening around the pond.
Yeah.
And, I'm not sure what we would be looking at in the pond. Maybe nitrogen, determine where
There
nitrogen.
was a lot of agriculture.
He had actually done some of that work.
right.
Like 10 years, a long time ago, right?
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
It's been-
I think I'd still
Pretty
describe it as current.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did a whole analysis of what's coming from where.
That's good. Because there is that drainage swale there that runs past
Past the school.
Wayne's, runs past Wayne's school there.
They need a Friends of Georgia, a Friends of
they really
Wainscott
do.
Pond. like
No, they
you-
really
you
do.
guys, and then-
I gotta tell you, you know what, if you really want to kickstart your new career,
That's,
there you go.
that needs some love.
Friends of
You
all
could
the Georgia
possibly double
Capone.
dip.
all right. So who's going to set up the meeting with Dr. Gobler to put this together?
I can
I think we need to set
have a
up
meeting ourselves.
first.
Yeah, when do you want to do that, John?
Too many time. Who's it gonna be? It can only be four of us, right?
Take your pick.
You, Patrice, I'm interested. Just one more.
I'm off this week. This week. Just let me know. I'll be in for it if you need another.
I'm available if you want to. have a statistician participate.
I think you've
I
already
think-
been recruited.
Can I, no, honestly, I
talking
think
to
you're
yourself.
bringing something to the table here, Patrice, that we could all use, so. I don't know, I'm fairly available at this point.
So you're able to get around pretty good.
Not supposed to, no.
When you meet with Dr. Gobler to discuss what the plan's going to be, is that an evening meeting or a daytime meeting?
I think it was Zoom, wasn't it? Didn't we-
Up by
I don't think
Zoom?
We met him, but I don't think we were in person.
Yeah, I think the last one we did was by Zoom, but I'm not sure why we did
Can you
that.
do that meeting after work?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you guys want to get together this week and discuss
Yeah.
what you're looking for and then, okay. All right, work it out.
Yeah, John, just send me a text or something, what you're thinking.
Okay. Is there any day that's not good? Day or time?
Yes, for me, I'm kind of a daytime person anyway.
So some morning, like maybe Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, I can't do Thursday, but Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, Friday, I've got to drive upstate.
Tomorrow, it's good, well,
All right, why don't we say
Day-
Wednesday?
Friday's kind of a
Why don't we say
religious thing.
Wednesday, 9 o'clock at the office?
Which Wednesday?
This is Good Friday, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be good Catholic.
All right,
It's kind of going.
let's move on. I guess we have new information about the Acabonic Marsh restoration. Who has that? Patrice?
I do.
No.
John does, okay.
I did speak to,
Nicole? Jade?
not Joyce, Jade, just to see what was going on, and she just didn't have anything to say. They're waiting to find out more, but they will be able to do this project, she believes.
Now, which project are we talking about?
The Acabonic Marsh restoration,
Are we talking about going out with the shovels and shoveling the little rills to drain the pans off?
We're still talking about planning and permitting it.
Okay,
and where to put it.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it was at least one grant. I don't know if this is working off one grant or two grants. But Nature Conservancy put together these smart teams, people who've done this work in New England. And last season, they came down and walked the marsh with different people that have been involved in this, vector control, PEP, trustees, town, Nature Conservancy, and sort of looked at the situation and tried to, suss out where to go with locating an area to do a restoration, project. It's not going to be the whole marsh. It's not going to be a big portion of the marsh. It's probably going to be in somewhere in the Merrill Lake Preserve area.
when you say restoration, what's the scope of that?
They want to do, they would call it minimal restoration, like shove little trowels.
Okay,
That's what they were thinking originally.
yeah.
But they would definitely be changing the surface of the marsh. Like, in that respect, that they would try to eliminate the low spots.
Well, the pans.
Bans, but there's been a lot of agriculture that's altered the marsh long time ago. And that it takes a real trained eye to see how
Those
that's.
subtle little.
Right, and then the planning has to be, okay, what is out there? What agricultural features are out there that are impacting the drainage of the marsh, and what can be done about it?
Yeah,
So
well,
that's-
you've got these little low saddles that, when they did the trenching, when they created some of those drains,
Right.
the tendency was to pitch that material to one side. So you created a little saddle, which upland basically creates a little dam
Yeah.
and, you know,
And in many cases, they actually, created fence lines and created berms to put the fence lines on in order to block off whole areas from the salt water to grow crops in fresher
well, I
water.
mean,
And now those are some of the high breeding areas.
Some of the ditching was put in to counteract some of the agricultural stuff that was done 50 years
No, hey,
before the
listen,
ditching.
you know, those salt marsh areas were more or less, prior to fertilizer and stuff, they were kind of ideal. No, but there was a process that you had to go through there. You had to, because the tidal flux kept the marsh sailing. So, the first step was typically the diking. And, I don't think we had any abatos on any of the dikes here because they weren't high enough. But you had a one-way valve, a flapper, that on the incoming tide, that thing would close. The rest of the time, it would flow open and it would gradually desalinate the areas. You'd go initially, you'd sweeten the soil to the point you could graze cattle on it, which was the predominant thing down in Accabonac, because you didn't have really good soils to grow anything down there. I mean, when I was a kid, they had cattle and stuff in some of those fields. But, gradually, as you got more of the salt out, you could grow crops in these areas. And, it wasn't just here. That was something done, where my family was into it up in Canada. That was a major sort of an industry.
So I think where they left it was to identify a location, and then I think they've landed on a spot that they want to work on, because a lot of the deeds have language in them that you can't change you can't change the configuration of the land there. You can't do anything, take soil in or bring soil out, bring it out. So it would have to be something that doesn't have that kind of language attached to it. And they seem to have something.
All right.
Well, the meeting there's going to be a meeting on May 15th, basically for the immediate people who've been partnering with this and the regulators. So this is going to be an important, meeting of the minds between the regulators and the planners of this project.
I think it's a 2-day meeting, right?
Well, the first day is going to basically be talking about, what plans are in the works. The second day is really just going to be for the regulators. But I guess, any trustee that's interested would be welcome.
I'm assuming this is a Zoom meeting?
No, this is a meeting in person at the Nature Conservancy office on Route 114 at 9:30 in the morning. So I can, forward the PEP notice to all the other trustees, but it's not necessary. Accabonac Protection Committee person asked me about this for information to put in the newsletter, and I consulted with Nicole about who would be welcome at these meetings. And, at this point, it's kind of just the people who've been working on it so far. There'll be public, meetings that are really oriented to the public later on.
So like the people who walked the creek the last time.
Yeah, and, the trustees have been involved with this, with the testing for mosquito larvae from the beginning, so. And the town as well, so.
Yep. And I was involved from the Accabonac Protection Committee, so.
Right, and there've been a few people that have attended, myself and Judith
So
Weiss.
it's pretty well covered.
Christine.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. Baby Beach, apparently there's been a load of sand dumped there.
Okay, John alerted me to the fact that they finally did do that. I'll make arrangements if it's okay, I'll make arrangements to have somebody spread it. And shape that area up. And John, maybe you and I can get together down there and look at it.
Tell them where to go.
Tell them where to go, yeah.
Where'd the sand come from?
It came from from Clearwater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what we did this year is, when they did their dredging,
Yeah.
and they came up with the amount of sand, we made an arrangement with them where we deducted, based on $7.50 a yard, we bought 100 yards from them via credit. So we're going to shake that up.
So is this from the stockpile or is this fresh?
No, this was fresh.
So it's all been dewatered?
Yeah, it's dewatered, this price, usually that stuff has got a lot of shells and it's not gonna really look like the other stuff and, we'll put it in there, maybe we can get some youth group or that, if they're interested, planted up beach grass.
So they dredged like 2 years ago. Is this from that batch or is this?
No, this is from this past season.
In December.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And what about the fence? Is that all set up?
Well, first step's gonna be spreading the material, and then if we're gonna extend the fence or make some adjustments to the fence, I think we'll kind of decide that then.
When's the beach grass planting season? Fall? It's gonna be
March. Bare root ends April, more or less April 1. But you can do like rooted plugs almost any time. And we'll want to I'm going to be honest, we'll want to let that sit for a while, let it get rained on, let some of that salt get washed out of it before we try and plant anything.
So next spring?
Or this coming fall. Once we get a frost, they start digging.
Do good club.
Yeah, I've got a lot of students who can help with.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, no, let's talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to get the grass or whatever we get there.
Well, that's no problem. And I'm gonna commit the trustees to buying the beach grass. If we can vote on that right now, I'd like to make a motion if somebody wants to second it.
Second.
Well, we need
Okay.
a number here.
Let's,
The budget.
won't be that much. It'll be cheap.
Okay.
Well, can we vote on the concept?
Yeah, please.
Yes,
Because I can't quote,
you're making a
I
motion
can't
that.
quote what the price
that we
of beach
plan-
grass is.
It's gonna be
It's
6
in,
months from now.
we-
There won't be any tariff on it.
Well, just where are you going to put the beach grass?
It's gonna be about 3 or 5
Because people
grand.
drive over that.
No, the idea
we
of
extend,
Patrice
there's a
is we're
little
gonna-
berm that prevents people from driving to the south. As they can drive in, they
Right.
can't drive to the south. But that berm is short. Now, we're going to extend the berm to the water, basically.
Yeah.
So the whole southern part is going to be pedestrian only. And so the beach grass will be planted along the berm.
Good. Because that's it. I walk there.
No, there'll be pedestrian access paths.
Stop people from driving there, hopefully.
Well, they'll have their own area. They'll still be driving on that. Segregated.
Is that the town's property?
So it's-
Or
It's beach.
And what it is, it's the dredge spoil from dredging 3 Mile Harbor.
Right.
It's not like a natural beach. That's why it's rock hard. You can drive a 2-wheel drive car on it.
I
I've seen
know.
people on it with mopeds.
Yeah.
So it's a emerging island.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's become a hotspot for locals.
All right. Okay, we can do this when you're ready to purchase.
Okay. Well, I'd like, just like get some, commitment, because David needs to coordinate his people.
Yeah, I think.
Just before the end of the school year?
It sounds like next year.
This is
So
the
It's gonna be
next school
probably, you know
year.
what?
September, October.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to have a whole new crowd.
Whole new crew. I'll see how that, yeah.
All right, Little Northwest Creek.
I haven't spoken to Drew. What's that?
All right, go ahead.
I hadn't spoken to Drew, but he's been kind of emailing me stuff. He did submit to DEC this pushback on that realignment, because, we are cutting through that dune, but there was also a request, because we're asking for 2 things. We're asking to realign that dredge at a little different angle, the angle that we wanted to do it the first time. And we're also asking, given the quality of the dredge material that we took out of there, to dredge farther to the south. Okay, so as a consequence to that request, DEC has asked for, sampling in that, which I think,
Yeah, Drew responded.
yeah, I think that's in the works. So I'll follow up with him this week and see how we're making out there.
Okay. Move on to committee reports. Georgica, beach cleanup, Friends of Georgica and Surfrider on April 19th.
Yeah, this Saturday, there's a beach cleanup open to the public, so hopefully people come down. It's Georgica, Friends of Georgica, and I think Surfrider sponsoring beach cleanup. So park at Beach Lane at 10 o'clock, walk down to Georgica, and there's gonna be food and prizes and drinks, and so come down if you can this Saturday at 10 o'clock to Beach Lane. Walk east.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Weather looks okay, yeah.
I'm going to upstate, pick up bees for Saturday. But if I'm-
You have to bring anything or just show up? Just garbage bags?
Yeah, they'll have everything, really. Bring a fishing pole, maybe there's some stripers on.
You never know.
Surfboard, yeah.
Actually, I know somebody saw the other day, bald eagle take out a goose.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
What was that?
Up one of them counter ones, right?
It's wild because they were, they're paired up this time of year. And the distraught partner's just been kind of roaming around aimlessly, so maybe she's the next meal.
Jeez. Water quality technical advisory, round one, water quality grant recommendations. John?
Yeah, this is the twice a year proposals for projects to be funded under the water quality part of the Community Preservation Fund money. So 8 projects, there were 10 projects proposed, 8 of them were recommended for funding by the committee to the town board. That was announced last Thursday, so I just thought I'd list off those projects. One is a new IA system in a 2-family house on North Main Street. The other one is a septic upgrade for the Napeak Camping Club. That's the trailer park down at the end of Crescent Boulevard, which is actually a great project.
Yeah.
I love the name.
Yeah, and it's a social club, that's a nonprofit social club. Third one is Rita Cantina septic upgrade. Fourth is Village of Sag Harbor sewer shed L expansion for School Street and the Methodist, not the Methodist, the Anglican Church for engineering for that upgrade. Next one is South Fork Sea Farmers for reef building projects. They're looking for money to buy, basically most of the money is going to be to buy a tumbler to clean the shell that they get. Next one is a new IA system at the Springs General Store. Next one is a new IA system for a portion of the Treescape condominiums off 3 Mile Harbor Road or off, Springy Banks Road. And the last one is an enhanced to Clear Bays Environmental, which is Ron Paulson, who's done a lot of PRB work. That's for an enhanced wetland restoration and shoreline stabilization and habitat improvement, nitrogen mitigation project in Hog Creek. That's basically to put core logs along the shore that is been disturbed and is being eroded by high groundwater flow toward the harbor at the very bottom of the harbor, and to establish a stronger wetland plant system behind the core log system. So that's for 150 feet of shoreline. And he'll be working with Bruce Horwath to plan that out. That should come to us for a permit. So we can probably weigh in on that if we have any recommendations at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So those have been recommended to the town board. There'd be a public hearing on these projects on May 1st. And the board will make a final decision on them at the May 15th meeting.
Did he pick just a few of them, or how's it work?
No, if all those recommendations, if they agree with them.
Oh, they do all of
pick
them.
them.
Oh, okay.
Where do you get the information for this if you want to review the projects? The general public.
Talk to Natural Resources, Melissa, Karen.
Is it on, because I was looking for it too, I couldn't find it on the website. I mean, I may not have seen it.
I don't know if it's on the web. I don't know how they.
So we could probably get it
Should
at
do
the
it.
town, go into Natural Resources.
Yeah, all the projects would have been submitted to the committee, so that, they're there
Right, but if
someplace.
there's going to be a public hearing, then you should
Yeah,
have
how would
access to the project
Well,
so you can understand it.
Melissa at Natural Resources is the central person.
Most would have everything.
She can direct you. She can't give it to you directly. She can direct you to where it's available.
All right, thank you. Aquaculture, Robert Vasaluth, Say Environmental, request to expand eelgrass seeding project in that Peak Harbor.
So Rob had come here and he had requested to plant some additional square footage of eelgrass in Napi, and that's what this is about.
He came and made a presentation, wanted to do this. He also submitted a proposal to fund this work to the CPF committee, CPF Water Quality Funding Program. It wasn't recommended. I think we had some discussions at the time that we permitted the original planting last year, which was done in the fall. And there was a monitoring protocol that went along with that program that was planned and is being undertaken by Cornell Cooperative Extension. That the only part of that that's been done so far was the initial monitoring pre-planting. There'll be a monitoring sometime in the spring or early summer perhaps, and then another one in the late summer, early fall. So
he's a little ahead of himself.
Well, he said he wanted to do it adjacent to the original plot that's planted. My feeling is it's premature. That I think we would like to see the results of the first planting before we move ahead on the second planting. And I'm also, in his proposal, there's language about, other people that are involved that I don't think are really involved at this time. I know Pete Topping from the Baykeeper actually made the first proposal last year. Rob did this year, but he said he would be working with Pete, but Pete was not really part of it this year, so I think we should wait to, I would feel more comfortable anyway, waiting to see how the planting worked out the first time. If it produced eelgrass, before we go ahead with approving the second one. And I don't know, as I said, his proposal for funding this thing wasn't one of the recommendations, so I don't know if he could even go ahead.
I agree with John. I think I've looked at, some of what was purported to be growing there. I just would rather see more from the monitoring. And I do think that speaks to having our standard monitoring approach for us, like whoever makes the monitoring plan, if we could have a standard set of language and activities that we expect.
Yeah, just as a little bit of an aside, this hasn't come to the full board yet, but came into the committee, I think the aquaculture committee, that another eelgrass planting proposal from a high school student. And, talking to Bob Tiemann and Carly at the Shellfish Hatchery about this, the monitoring, we're getting all these projects coming in pretty fast. Mm-hmm. Oyster reefs, eelgrass plantings. And I think we really have to be careful about, being, looking for monitoring and as you say, looking to kind of standardize the monitoring. So, we're looking at apples to apples comparisons of things.
Yeah, I just think we have the eelgrass has been decimated and it's a huge problem in our ecosystem. So I don't want to drag our feet here when this guy has a solution that seems to be working.
You don't know.
Yeah, but he's got an approach, and we'll see if it's working. But the realities here are, they've tried, planting eelgrass. There've been different methods have been used, but the biggest issue is if you don't have the right conditions to grow it.
That's why he's using the clam, which digs down. That's a whole new thing.
But it's not tested.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. The couple let's face it,
I think we
guys.
should just support him and say, give us the evidence and we'll.
Yeah.
Right, but isn't that what we're waiting for, is the evidence?
Yeah, and
on the
we talked about going out, I think it's in June,
Mm-hmm.
to look at,
Weren't you gonna dive down and take pictures of it?
Yes, I'd like to, and kind of evaluate the success of this.
Well, Cornell is doing
It's more than
Cornell
the
is doing
plan.
the monitoring.
Yeah,
They're
good.
doing it the way they monitor all the eelgrass plantings and have for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
So there's a consistency there.
Yeah,
And,
and are they seeing anything?
They haven't done.
They haven't done it yet.
Post-planting.
Yeah, so let's look at it. Before we enlarge the product for the project, I agree with you, John.
I think, I agree, we should support this if it shows evidence of working.
Right.
I just don't want him to miss a whole season because.
Are we, I don't think we're missing a whole season, are we?
There is a monitoring plan that I got from PEP, from Joyce, for another project. And you can see that the things that they're looking at about the plants once they start to grow. So that's what we're waiting for, that we know that he puts it in a clam and it grows, but is it going to thrive? Is it going to be able to reproduce and have seeds and that kind of thing? So,
Well, I'm not sure this monitoring plan that we approved for this first project takes it that far.
again,
I think
it's success, survivability.
yes.
Well, do they grow? And, do they grow? That should be done to be seen in the spring evaluation. And then are they going to live? That should be seen in the late summer evaluation. So,
But the tough thing here, guys, is eelgrass under the right conditions actually grows pretty fast.
Yeah.
But that's the key issue. We haven't had the right conditions for a long time. And in the case of Napeague Harbor, hey, it grew great in Napeague Harbor. Realize all of Napeague Harbor, the east side of Napeague Harbor was dredged almost all the way down to the road end years ago. And over the time, that has silted back in, and probably the big need we have here is to get good circulation back in there. Same situation occurred in Lake Montauk. Lake Montauk was a freshwater lake until Carl Fisher got the great idea to make a harbor out of it. But the conditions that existed when they created that harbor was a boom for the eelgrass. Okay, the eelgrass grew great for 50, 70 years. And now it's been on a consistent decline, and at some point, I think you have to have one of those dramatic events that creates the kind of conditions that'll allow something like the eelgrass to grow.
I think one of the, a positive thing about the monitoring and holding off on another planting in the same place is the monitoring would show, it very well may show that it's not really very successful here. So then that might allow us, or Rob himself, or everybody.
To reevaluate the location.
Consultation with everybody else who knows about this stuff, to look for another spot for the next approved planting in that, using this method.
Right, get it, it might be the depth or the salinity or the.
Or the bottom.
So why don't we try 10 spots instead of trying one at a time? And, seems to me you try 10 spots and you see this one's working.
Yeah, but the issue that you get into when you try 10 spots is just taking the same aggregate number of plants. You're applying them to smaller areas, and your ability to evaluate your success drops exponentially as you do that, because, let's face it, you throw 200 plants out. Well, the odds of those things surviving under the best conditions may have been only 2%. And now you take those 200 plants and you divide them over 10 different areas. It's going to be really hard to evaluate success at all.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to have a monitoring plan that considered all those places, and you might need you might want to have drones to check it out, or underwater cameras. I mean,
Who's going to pay for all this?
Yeah,
it'd be a lot of work.
yeah, I think this is a pretty low tech.
Yeah,
This is a pretty low tech approach. It's intriguing. I think it'd be great if it's working. But the big question is, do the conditions exist there for this stuff to survive long term?
and the other thing is, if there are spots where there's cold groundwater coming up near the shore, those would be good places.
Well, that's where they tried this place.
Yes.
This is one of those places.
One of those places.
And historically, there's been a good eelgrass bed there, but it's not so good anymore. It's probably the best eelgrass bed in Napeague Harbor, and probably one of the best eelgrass beds in town, but it's not that great.
Yeah, well, yeah, but what's weird is you do have good eelgrass in Fort Pond Bay. Rocket
You have
Point
good
and that.
eelgrass right off Hicks Island.
Yeah.
Right on the other side of Hicks Island. And it's been that way.
And when we
all
open
along.
that other inlet, John, that eelgrass is going to move inside. I just feel it in my heart.
I
It's in
heard
my
that
bones.
too.
Just waiting,
Yeah.
sitting there waiting.
But it's, stick a monitoring plan on you, Jim.
It's possible. I mean, if it was there when the harbor was open.
Well, actually, there was eelgrass along
lot of eel.
that the hill shore. And that eelgrass actually did leave and then come back
Oh, wow.
about, I don't know, about 2008 or so, 2009.
Oh.
And it's still there. This is farther north than where we're talking about this plot, but it's thin, but it's hung on.
Yeah, it's just kind of like Donald Trump's hair.
All right, education.
So a bunch of East Hampton High School seniors applied for our annual scholarship. So that's good. They're at the office. So just Wednesday, they'll be available to read. And we have until April 29th, the end of the day, to finish reading them. So go read them and choose your favorite candidate and let Allison or Arlene know.
I went to the science
2
presentation.
weeks to read it.
How was that?
It was excellent. Those students, they're so advanced, it's amazing.
Yeah, we're in good hands.
And careful. And it was good to, hear them, so it will help, in evaluating people. They were all over the spectrum in terms of what their content was and what their subjects were and where they worked. It's great.
Did you listen to the one on microplastics? Would that be something we should maybe see if she'd want to present here,
Yeah.
potentially?
It'd be nice, tell you what, that's a nice.
Who was the winner?
Yeah,
There's
it
a
was really
winner.
nice.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure, did they pick, I don't know if there's a winner
Okay.
per se, right?
I don't know if
No,
it's a
Dave?
contest.
Yeah, it's not a contest, but they're all
It's just
incredible.
an exhibit.
It's really, really mind blowing. Some of them are.
Future trustees there, definitely. Yeah, it's a wonderful program.
If they stick around.
Yeah, if they can
Right.
find a place to live.
They had one on exterior lights at night and inhibiting the mating behaviors of lightning bugs. It was so simple and clear, and it's just great data.
So you guys have 2 weeks to read those and let Allison know.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Dredging, Suffolk County dredge priority request.
So,
You've been talking to Kim about that.
well, as much as you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Suffolk County, who it was, maybe the county executive sent the supervisor a letter looking for the town's priority dredge requests for 2025. Kim forwarded to us for our input. So I don't know. I think probably our priority is Acabonic. I think on the permit that they have, they can take the tip off of that Louse Point that we've been digging back with the excavator. So I think we should try to steer them in that direction.
The channel runs, there's like 3 different permits to take the tip off. One of them is the county, when it runs, it takes the tip off.
They did it only.
Well, they've always
years ago.
done it, yeah.
Yeah, the problem with that is we can't move it further down the beach where we would like to see it go. The county won't do that. They
No.
won't
No, but-
allow us
but
to
the-
take it separately on our
But the
own.
last time we did it, we had the county move it to as far as they normally would have had to move it, which is about in the middle of the beach.
Right.
And so we had to move it there, and then we moved it from there further down the beach.
Right.
So if the county moved, put it where they normally put it, they've had it filled in, they'd have to put it down by where that ramp, where they have like a natural sand ramp coming up. They would have to put it there.
Well,
And we got permission to move it further down the beach. And we worked it out with the
That's the way I
homeowners.
remember it.
But the county wouldn't bring it all the way down.
But do we not need it by the ramp? Is that what you're saying?
They won't go to the ramp yet.
Right, so I thought
No,
that,
no, I'm talking about a ramp on the Gardeners Bay side.
oh,
They just,
okay.
when they put the.
Yep.
There's an area down there where they kind of built a natural ramp
Yes.
going up to the.
I thought he meant the ramp.
No, that's probably where that's where they would start putting the sand.
well, all we can do is make the request. I mean, it's just a matter of what is our input in terms of priority for
I
the
think we
dredge
should-
this year.
I've been talking to the fishermen down there. They're putting out their fish steaks. They have a 5-foot wide place to get through. The sand, they can hardly get through, even when it's not low tide. And they would appreciate it if they could,
That's what
better.
we're talking about.
yeah.
That-
Right, but it won't be done until Fall.
Right.
Nobody can do
See,
anything.
the whole thing with this thing is we have to get them to agree to go to the launching ramp, and it has to be part of the bid package.
Well, that's
Before they
not
give
what,
it out
that's
to
not
the
what,
contractor.
that's not the immediate question.
But not only,
But now is the time we want to tell them we want them to go to the launching ramp.
And what about
Well, I
our
think
culvert?
that could, if we're involved in that, in the conversation of the priorities for this year, we can bring in the whole, we would like to move the sand, can we do, that's a question, right? It's like, where are you gonna deposit the sand and what can be done with it? And then we can ask about, what do we need to go down farther to the launching ramp? But still, the immediate thing for this year is to get rid of the tip of that point.
That's part of the channel. So when we say we want them to dredge Acquabonic Harbor, that includes that. There's like 3 different permits that run across the same meets and bounds on a channel. That tip is extending into the geographical area located on the county's permit to do that. So if we wanted to do Acquabonic
So
Harbor.
are you saying that the county has a permit
Yes.
to go to the launching ramp?
No, I don't know if they,
No,
I'm talking about the tip.
Yeah.
Tips of the thing.
they told us no.
but we have our own separate permit to only take that tip off
Right.
Right.
and move it down the beach.
But our ability to cut that back is much less than their ability to cut that back. We can't do with an excavator what they can do with the dredge,
Right.
right? I mean, I don't know, is that not going to be our priority? I mean, do we have another priority? No.
But just by having them do Acquabonic Harbor, that point is one of the things will definitely come off. That's part of the channel. That's
Right.
part
That's the
of the
plan.
meets and bounds of the county dredge permit. Where we get into a fuzzy area is they always want to stop just past that. And they claim that the soil in that part of the channel is not beach compatible.
Well,
Yeah,
they
but
stopped.
That's a
Disagree.
whole nother,
That's a different
whole nother
question.
permitting process, right?
I don't know. Originally the channel had to go to the launching ramp. The only reason they put channels in was to go to
Currently
the
have
launching
a
ramp.
permit that
The permit
extends
they
that
have now
far.
They
does
told
not
us no,
include it.
they're
Yeah.
not going to do that. But,
have to read
but
the
what,
permit,
what's
maybe.
going on now is the fishermen are finding that there's a sandbar outside of the channel, right, in Gardner's Bay, sort of. So that, they won't do that. But if they would do just the channel, that would help them a lot, because right now, they're just a little thing they're going through.
I'd like to look at the channel, goes out. It goes out of
Yeah.
Acquabonic and it
Channel
goes
goes
straight
over
off. The channel
towards-
goes straight out.
Yeah,
If that's filled in and what was
I think they
it's all,
should,
I mean, they have it down to the square inch of where the channel thing is.
The
So
cha-
if there's
the
a
channel goes
shoal
over
in
to
there, they'll
Gerard.
take it out.
And then, but the tip is working its way into the channel
Oh, it is.
from the beach.
you could walk across to Tick Island now.
No, you can't. No, you can't. That's a big drop off at the end of the.
Yeah, it's a channel. You could swim.
Long jumper.
Swim, that's for sure.
The other thing is, there's no navigational markers around there. There's, even the one that,
Conversation every year.
right, but even the one that was in the channel is gone, and no one knows what happened to it. Like, where did it go?
Well,
The one that said channel, boat
Right.
channel, don't swim here, it's gone.
Marine Patrol knows the answer to that question. I don't know it, but they know it.
But it should, that should be that should be,
My conversation about that buoy when I had it a couple of years ago was, it's been in there, nobody pays any attention to it. And, it's kind of a useless buoy. People swim
Yeah,
in the
but
channel,
Yeah,
boats go in the
that's
channel.
fine, but if they swim and it's not enforced, yeah, they're going to ignore it. So that's a ridiculous answer.
it doesn't make sense. It's like saying people speed, so we'll just take away all the speed limits.
People don't obey the robbery laws, so we'll just let it go.
Yeah, let it go. And then the other thing I've noticed is people are parking on the launch ramp and leaving their vehicles there, and that's supposed to be public access, so there were signs there that are gone, which said no parking. There were 2 signs, and those are gone. So, I mean, I guess that's the town.
Are they launching and leaving their cars, or are they just parking?
They just park there, and they go and they
okay.
walk their dogs.
On the launch ramp? Why?
Yep.
There's a lot of places to park.
For the view, for sunset view.
Yeah, right, that's the prime
There's
place.
a lot of places to park. I know.
I don't think that would fly when boats are launching. I think the launching, the cars with the boats would solve that problem for us.
But it's, the fishermen were mentioning it, that they can't launch their boats. So,
Science project.
Give me your phone number.
Stephanie,
Amazing. She started it off.
anyway,
she's the one that started global.
I think the highway department has to put up signs,
yeah,
no parking.
or the Parks Department, yeah.
I think parks is part of the road. I would think it's part of the road system.
What's interesting? They put up a snow fence,
It's really
they
great.
put up a sand fence at the end where they put that planting. They, going down the harbor and in the parking lot, you look straight ahead, they put up a sand fence.
At the top of well, that's
Right.
not really a sand fence, it's
No,
to
but
keep
it
people out of
actually-
it.
It helped, right? I think
Yeah.
it helped.
Yeah.
But it looks horrible.
Yeah, people are going off the edge of that, so now they can't access it. Okay.
So what are we gonna say? Do we have a recommendation or?
Does anybody have any thoughts other than Acabonic?
On the dredging?
Yeah.
I would say Acabonic. And what about the culvert on Girard? Is that part of this?
No.
Okay. Is that going to be dredged?
I don't know.
We-
Let's stick to this. Let's stick to our recommendation to the county for a priority for their dredging this year.
So that one's just,
That's not the county.
for the county, I would say it's Acabonic and NatP.
We just didn't.
Well, I'm opening it.
We had talked about,
Yeah, but
we had talked
there's no permit for that.
briefly about Northwest Creek, farther in on the north side.
That's another permit.
That's county.
Well, the county would have to be convinced to do that and put in for the permits to do that. And that
Or modification.
extends into trustee waters. Right now, what they're dredging is county-owned waters, and it's only for navigation into the mooring area. So it's not on their permits. It would have to be a whole request and negotiation.
We've done it, we made a request a couple times.
I know we
have it all
talked
written
about
up
this.
and stuff.
Yeah, the request has been made in the past, and it's sort of just been dropped.
How did Clearwater Beach Inlet make through that fill in from time to time?
Every year they do that again.
That's not this though, right?
That's
No, we don't.
done by Clearwater
Yeah,
Beach Association.
Correct.
We're talking about Northwest Creek,
Yep.
Fremont Harbor, Napeag, and Acabon. That's it. And I don't know, Fremont Harbor actually hasn't been done for, 5 or 6 years?
That's a major project, yeah.
But usually we get grumblings, right?
Mhm.
The shoulder.
Haven't heard any,
Right.
All right, so let's go with Acabonic. All right, administrative payment of the bills. Louis Joe's Avalon Villas LLP, $14,424 for legal services. Now, I looked at this. I don't know if you had a chance, Chris?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems that this invoice is for them to catch up on taking over for our previous representation on the we're not calling it Truck Beach anymore, but What's that?
Seaview.
Seaview lawsuit.
Make a motion to approve.
I have more.
Oh, more?
Yeah, East Hampton Star, $94.15, legal notice. And Riverhead Building Supply, $79.21 for kayak repair.
Yeah, so just, you know,
Kayak
friends,
rack
I'm good with the Louis Joe's bills. A lot of the heavy lifting is associate attorneys at Fred's firm drafting briefs for appeal on contempt. So all looks good to me. And there's some correspondence there. So yeah, this is from November through March, 14,000. So they've been reasonable with us from the beginning. So all good with the Louis Joe's bills.
That's everything.
All right,
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Website, Michael Hansen has sent in his proposal to renew his contract with us to maintain our website. It's exactly the same as it's been for the past 3
I'd
years.
like to make a motion that we just approve that.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and lastly, report of the clerk. We were having conversations earlier about monitoring of these projects, and the Georgia Oyster Reef project keeps me awake at night, to be honest.
Did you bring that?
I did. Okay. Dr. Goldberg made his presentation last week on water quality, and afterwards he verified that the future of this reef project is to establish the growth of oysters in that pond. I, for the life of me, have never seen any reference to oysters in Georgia Pond. And it's being represented as a restoration project. First off, I would like to see the permit refer to it as an introduction project, because that's exactly what it is. And I think we need to review it that way.
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to go ahead with that, that there's going to have to be some pretty severe monitoring of the growth, where it's going. It's a closed ecosystem, and I don't want to be a board that drastically changed that entire closed ecosystem.
Right.
You know, it's just the unintended consequences, I think, could be quite severe.
Yeah, they might, they've done some work in there, back when the question of the harvester, there were questions about how the harvester impacted the pond. So they've got some baseline ecological data that they've, built off of, I think, some kind of a monitoring program that would go along with the establishment of the reef. I agree that, there should be a monitoring plan that goes along with this thing.
Yeah, I was,
Just approve it, for its water quality improvement.
I'm John, I'm glad both of you guys are kind of bringing this up, because from the beginning, I've looked at these as somewhat vanity research projects. We're essentially raising oysters in this little closed environment. Mr. Dole said he didn't expect them to reproduce or to, procreate and continue on. And truthfully, the size of these things, if you measure the amount of water they're capable of filtering, it has no measurable impact on the water quality in Georgia Pond. The Georgia quality in Georgia Pond has been, every year has been improving since we started doing, the algae harvesting. But the biggest issues is once we got the dredging permits back in place, and I'm going to be honest, we've gotten better at doing the letting, because it's really the amount of time that let has stayed open. It has been the biggest impact
Right.
on the water quality in there. To the point that last year, there was almost no work for the algae harvester, because you know what? We didn't have any. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have
Right,
this
that's 1 year.
happen again, but right now, as of today, that let was still open, the pond is still flowing. I don't have a friggin' crystal ball as to what works, what doesn't work, but over the years, we've learned that don't try and do it on a new or full moon. There's just too great a tide change. It seems to work better on that intermediate period. And it's, you know, like right now, it's staying open. I'd actually like to see it close a little earlier. I don't want to see it do what it did last year, which was stay open so long that the thing migrated over to the Georgia Association, because by the time things got done, we didn't have enough sand over there to close it was the problem. But it's, you know, it is having a, I'd say,
But they're proposing oysters to be, to be disseminated in that pond, and
be successful.
Yeah, yes, they would, yeah. Yeah, the
But if
goal is to establish oysters in the pond.
Because when I asked Dr. Gobler what were the objectives, he said it's not a scientific experiment. It's
Yeah, he made
it's
that
already.
very clear in his presentation.
Yeah. So I think, if we had,
That's it. Why are we doing this?
well, I just,
It's another tool
Well,
for
I
clean
think there is
water.
interest, by a constituency around the pond to utilize this tool to help improve water quality.
I don't have
I
a
think
problem
there's
with that.
there's certain value in it.
Don't either.
I just think we have to be able to know how they're growing. Like, are they doing well? Or are they overtaking the pond? Or are they not doing well? There's hardly any, in which case you would add more. But I just think we need to keep a gauge on the population change over time.
Well, I think we're not going to craft this monitoring plan. I think what we need to do, if we're going in this direction, if we're going in the direction of saying okay to this with a monitoring plan, we have to state our concerns clearly
Yeah,
and make sure the monitoring plan that's proposed
Addresses.
those
yeah, it
concerns.
addresses, if it's sufficient for our concerns, that's fine. We're not going to write the monitoring plan, but we have certain,
We have to be
concerns,
very clear about
what we want.
what we want.
Because
looked at.
when Francis said that they've never been there,
I mean, I read the books in the office all the time.
I researched it. I
Never has there been mention of oysters in
found
that
it on the
pond.
internet that they've never had oysters in there.
So it's concerning that we're the ones who want to introduce it.
Well,
Yeah.
in fairness, I was asked by Jim McCaffrey to introduce
It's
oysters.
just so, that's fine.
Doesn't make it any,
Doesn't make
any,
it the right
any
thing to
more or
do.
less right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm sure trustees before that have thought, hey,
People
what
thought
about
bamboo
oysters
was a
in
great
Georgia?
idea.
That's right.
You
Or
know?
sea lettuce.
But it's a natural thought. It's like, hey, they're okay in Mecox, why wouldn't they be okay in Georgia? And I think that thought has persisted over the years.
But apparently Georgia is a prime area for them.
Well-
And if it's such a great place for these things
Why
to be
aren't they already
growing,
there?
why weren't they before?
Because
I don't
I
understand
think they
that.
like the septic, so there's the septic inputs.
I think it's all salinity myself, but
Well, yeah, but they're feeding that, and then the salinity is helping, so it's a good spot
I
for
just
them.
think we have to be very careful, and I'm not saying that we kill this project, I'm just saying that
Proceed slowly.
slowly. It's really- To me, right now, I view this that it's not a whole lot different than that cable that was put in down there. We set guidelines that we wanted them to adhere to,
Yep.
and I think we need to do that here.
I agree.
Francis, I was thinking the same as you just then, and I was thinking that setting some sort of benchmark for what success is, and in the event
Right.
determination is made that it's not successful, then there should be pretty clear guidelines as to what decommissioning that project look like?
Well,
Moving the bags or whatever it is.
Well, yeah,
Making sure
so
they
let's
get
not make it so big that it's impossible to decommission. The issue I'm listening to, I've watched this whole thing, and let's face it, what's the biggest, other than the bait fishermen, as far as like what gets harvested out of there's crabs, okay? What's the biggest predator on these young oysters is crabs. Okay, so what we're keeping the oysters alive by putting them in exclusion bags so the crabs can't get at
And
them.
sacrificing the outer layer.
Well, no, you're not really. The bags are only to contain the shell on which the oysters live, then the oysters grow out of the bags. They're not protected,
Well,
once
right now,
start to grow.
they did mention that the bags were protecting them.
Well, they mentioned that the oysters that lived were more inside the shell.
Yeah.
It's the
And they
fact that they're
speculated that it was because
surrounded
the
by shell.
crabs couldn't get at them.
Yeah, right.
So,
So there's two things. There's how fast they grow, how the population changes, and any other unintended consequences that we might encounter. Like you mentioned, Jim, at one point, the shells, walking on shells.
Well, Oyster Pond, I don't understand how that pond got so full of oysters.
Yeah.
What was it that happened out there that
boom and
they
bust.
well, I know why they busted, but why did they boom like that? And I know Georgica is many times the size of Oyster Pond,
Well,
but
the natural conditions in Georgica Pond for a long time, in Oyster Pond, for a long time favored oysters. It's also favored soft shell clams. But when that got interrupted by that pile of rocks that got pushed up by Sandy so far that the pond couldn't let, that was the last bust of the.
right, but that's not going to happen in Georgica because we let it twice a year.
Right.
So it's going to continue to be the optimum growing environment.
But the conditions that allow Oyster Pond and Georgica Pond to go fresh after a let is closed are not the same.
No, but isn't that what's keeping I don't know what that disease, but there's a disease that's been wiping out, that fresh water is what's keeping that from growing.
It's helping, yeah, it's helping.
So to me, it's
That's
a concern
typical of
that
oysters.
this seems to be a better environment than Mecox. And so that's why they want to grow them there. But what's going to keep them from overtaking?
Right. That's what we need to
It's such a
monitor.
great environment for it. What's going to prevent them from overtaking the pond?
Yeah.
Well, certainly, do they reproduce? How widely do they range if they are reproducing and setting? That's two clear, simple questions that I think they would already be looking at that anyway. The other thing is, are things changing in the pond? If that's the case, if they're spreading and you're getting settlement up in all the creeks or certain creeks, are the other conditions in the pond being changing?
I think that's great, but I would just like to count some of them, like to see how they over time, how they grow, just to see where they actually are and how they're moving. And that would take 5 years, maybe, I don't know how long, but just to keep an eye on
How that's
it.
typically done is to put spat collectors, or, you put these things around the harbor and then you check them. And if you get oysters settling on them, you'll see, and you can keep track of that.
Right.
over
It could be
time.
part of our modeling.
Yeah, that's a simple thing. But if that shows that they're settling all over the place, and then you're starting to see evidence of them on the rocks, on the edge of the shore and stuff like that. Okay, now oysters are populating Georgica Pond. And what then? I mean,
they would love that. That's their goal. But
To a certain
I have,
extent.
to a certain extent, I have a concern about that.
If it was over, if it was too much, you would want to remove some of them before they got too
How
out
do
of
you do that?
control.
I
But,
don't know if that's practical.
well, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you just don't want that to
Like
happen.
culling deer or something.
Well, do you start an oyster season? You know, are the Baymen, they're going to be calling up.
Shellfish waters that you can harvest out of to do that. We never have in Georgia.
That's true. True.
Yeah.
So these are questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
I thought that, I'm glad we were able to talk about this now before there was a meeting between Bayman and Mike Dole and trustee. This, I think, should be incorporated into that meeting. This broaching this question. I think even Robbie Stone alluded to this concern himself when he presented to us. I think he was concerned about.
Well, that's what triggered it with me. All of a sudden, I realized that these never existed in that pond before. Why is that? And why do we want to introduce them other than water quality?
Well, it's considered like ecological engineering when you introduce something that's never been there. So you
Zebra mussels.
Yes.
There's so many examples where it's
So you
going
just
wrong.
want to have some
Yes,
monitoring.
they cleaned the Great Lakes up. And they started doing other things too.
Right. And I don't want to be that person.
No,
I think it's our responsibility as stewards of that pond.
Exactly.
To ask these questions.
All right,
it
absolutely.
is our responsibility, ultimately.
Okay, so I'm glad, this is the first time we as a board have had any conversation about that.
And if they do come up,
We need to
if they
start
have
that.
a monitoring plan, could we see it, like just to read it?
Well, we have to, again, tell them what our concerns
Right.
are and then
And
be
then-
satisfied that monitoring plan
And
meets
then
those
read it
concerns.
and then have it as part of our permit.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyone else?
Just wanted to say something.
Chris, want to say something?
Yeah, once this topic's over, yes.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Okay.
We beat it
Yeah,
up.
just lastly, the letter of credit's been floating around for a little while with regard to Orsted. Had a chance to review that and the history on it. So letter of credit is a irrevocable letter of credit that we've had ongoing. It renews automatically annually. The purpose of the letter of credit, you guys, is to give us a mechanism to handle some renourishment down at the beach where that cable crosses in the event it becomes uncovered. So it's $1.2+ million for us in the town to access in the event Orsted or its subsidiaries or partners either don't act or refuse to act or don't act in time, and to cover that cable back up in the unlikely event it ever becomes uncovered. This all stems from when we were negotiating the host community agreement in the beginning. And it's a good tool for us, so we should just put that to bed. And the reason why we held off for a while is because Dan Spitzer needed a little leverage himself to make sure his firm got paid. We handled that. So that's all done behind us. The agreement's good to go. So I recommend we move forward with approving the letter of credit language.
Make motion. Second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Is
Okay.
that all you got, Chris?
That's all I got.
All right, motion,
Motion to end the meeting?
adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.